Hello, hello. All right. Today we're going to talk about something that I find exciting. And it is all about I have lost all my money. I'm standing here with $0 and I am doing my best to make ends meet, to try to make things happen, right? And one thing that I often find is everyone says there's no way I can do it. One of the things that you have going for you is you already have money. So a lot of these things that we talk about aren't going to work for me. And what I'm going to tell you is I completely disagree with you. So we're going to go into this scenario and I'm going to tell you exactly how I would start from zero and work my way up to $1 million over the course of a year or two if I had absolutely nothing. All right. Now, the first thing we're going to think about is we're going to build out our toolbox. We're going to build out that toolbox. And what does that mean? That means I have been dropped in an area. I have no money, but I do have assets. I have intelligence up here. There's some tools in my toolbox. There's things that I know. And if I don't know them, I know where to go look. I can go pull a book from anywhere and learn something I don't know, right? So what's the very first thing I do? I'm in a new area. Number one, I am going to go out and I'm going to research every single broker inside of my area. Now, if I'm going commercial, I'm going to research all the commercial brokers. And if I'm going residential, I'm going to find me a good handful of residential brokers that are going to help me start working through some things. I'm going to also find out where those local meetups are. Okay. So, there's not a lot of multifamily meetups, but there's definitely some residential meetups. You can go out there, you can find some people that have the knowledge that you're trying to attain, right? So, first of all, I'm going to find my brokers. I'm going to find those meetups. Two very important things, right? Then I'm going to start building me out a list of properties and multifamilies and all those things in the areas. Now, that's important. Last, I'm going to find me a good contractor, general contractor, and a property manager. Now, let's go ahead and get started. How am I going to start making some money? One of the very first tools in my toolbox is wholesaling. So I've been dropped into this area. I have no money, but I know how to wholesale, right? So I'm going to start finding properties to wholesale. And I'm going to list all of these properties inside of a CRM. Okay. And then I'm going to start researching. I'm going to start reaching out to the property owners. I'm going to do my best to start getting me a queue of properties that I can wholesale and start pulling in anywhere from 10 to 30K per property on wholesaling. Now, some of you are going to say there's absolutely no way that's going to work, right? There's no way that's going to work. It's not going to work in my area. I just can't do it. Let me tell you a little story. About 10 years ago, I found a mobile home park that I was, that I wanted to actually flip. Now, this isn't the mobile home park that I had bought and renovated and done all that. This was just a mobile home park somebody had, and I went out and I offered them seller financing. Now, the owner initially didn't really understand what it was. And so as I explained to them what seller financing was, I was able to get this under a seller financing contract. Now, here's the kicker. At the end of the day, I decided I didn't really want this mobile home park. So what did I do? I took that contract and I gave it to someone else for a fee. That one particular property ended up getting me about $50,000 just from taking a contract, handing it to somebody else. Now, what else was in that story? Seller finance. That's another one of my tools that are in my toolbox, right? Another tool that I have in there that I'm able to use. But we really haven't started making money. But let me tell you, here's what I'm going to do now. These first 3 months, as I get my queue of wholesale deals in place, I'm going to start turning those. I'm going to start getting me a little bit of capital coming in, and I'm going to try to turn anywhere from 5 to 10 of those over these first 3 months. The goal is to get me somewhere around 50 to 100K, right? Just from doing these wholesaling deals, right? So I'm building up my toolbox. I'm starting to go out and make things happen. I'm attending the meetups. I'm calling all the brokers. Now, what else do I got to do? I've got to go out and I got to start calling these mom and pops, right? What's that going to do for me? All I've got to do is just make some money. So I'm going out here. I can call the residential mom and pops that's got these properties that maybe they look run down. You see grass out here and it's falling apart. And I start working to wholesale these deals. Now, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to also find me a general contractor or somebody like that, or somebody at these meetups. Now, what's the purpose of that? Now, let's go ahead and I'll come off of this toolbox for a minute. And I'm going to go through my first 3 months. So in that first 3 months, I've already started wholesaling. I'm going to also start finding partners that I can flip properties with. Now, I didn't have any money, so I want you to keep that in mind. So what do? As I find these properties that I know I can flip, I'm going to find me a partner, maybe somebody that has a self-directed Roth IRA, maybe somebody that has a little bit of money that they have in the stock market. They're not quite making what they want to. And then I might have my general contractor come in, do the renovations. I'm going to turn it, I'm going to flip it. So as I'm working through these wholesale deals and I'm building up a little bit of money to start putting in the bank account, I'm making my 5, 10, 15, 20K, right? I'm putting it inside a bank account, making sure I also cover my expenses, right? So at the end of the day, let's say I've flipped 3 houses with a partner, and I've went out and let's say I've wholesaled 5 to 10 properties. Okay. So at this point, at the end of month 3, my goal is to be sitting here between $150,000 to $250,000, right? $150,000 to $250,000. What have I done? I've established a network of people at the meetups. I have let everybody know in the area that I'm a player in the area, that I want to make sure that I'm able to turn these properties. They know that I can take these properties and make things happen. I've built out the list of mom and pops. I'm starting to communicate with them. So month 1 to 3 isn't just about money. It's about getting the knowledge, making sure you're building a network, making sure you've started to meet up with these mom and pops and started to reach out, build a little bit of rapport, right? Because month 1 to 3 is just to get started on that, just to get something started. Now let's go ahead and jump a little forward. What if we are talking about months 3 through 9? This is where it starts to get fun. Now remember, our goal was to get somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000 in our account in the first 3 or 4 months. Okay, it may take a little longer, may take a little less time, but again, we started to build that mindset that we can make these things happen. So we go into months 3 through 9. I've got a little bit of money sitting out here. This is when I start looking at some multifamily properties. Okay, now I'm looking into multifamily properties. Now I'm thinking about how do I start taking this and doubling it, right? So I'm going to keep doing my wholesaling. I'm going to keep reaching out. I'm going to try to do some seller financing. I'm going to try to do some seller carrybacks, do some partnerships, all those things. Now I'm going to go out and start researching my multifamily. Okay. As I'm researching the multifamily, I don't want to stop anything else. Let me go find a 6 to 12 unit. Okay. Perfect size when you're starting out with the bounce method, 6 to 12 unit. So I've got that list on my CRM. I go out, I start finding me somebody that's got a 6 to 12 unit. I've defined my buy box. Okay. I've said I want a 6 to 12 unit. I want it to be a value add. These are the things I want to do. I put this under contract. The goal of this first property is to get the knowledge to keep these things going. Again, knowledge is always key, right? Knowledge is always key. Now you can say, we've got this money sitting here, but what if we only ended up raising about half of that? Partnerships again, right? Working with some other people, making those things happen. But let's say here that we go out and we grab me a 6 to 12 unit. Let's say we find a 10 unit, and that 10 unit is $1 million. Right? Let's say 10 unit, $1 million, and I want to go out and I've taken some of the money here, but I didn't have enough to actually do it all myself. And so let's say I put 100,000, I put 125,000 down, and let's say I got a partner that puts 125,000 down. Okay. So at the end of the day, we've got $250,000 down at this point. I still have a little bit of money that I can go out and start working on renovations. Remember that. All right. So I found my $1 million deal. I've got 125,000 out of my own pocket. I've come in, I've made some renovations, and let's just say we're talking about a 6 cap in the world of multifamily. Okay. Now, let's say for every single one of those units, I have increased the value by the net operating income by $200. Okay. So at this point, let's go ahead and jump to the next sheet. I've got 200 times 10 equals 2,000, right? 2,000 times 12 is equal to 24,000. And we said we're working on a 6 cap, right? So let's figure out what the value is going to be, what the value increase is going to be on a 6 cap. All right. So quick math on this is 24,000 divided by 0.06. $400,000 change. $400,000 change. Now, we've obviously made some renovations. Say we put about 50 to 60,000. Let's just round it off. We put 100,000 in renovations, right? In order to fix those 10 units. So I had my $400,000 change minus 100,000 for renovations, $300,000 increase. I put 125,000 in. I'm taking 50% of my 300,000. Now I have 275,000 plus whatever I had left over in the very beginning. Let's go back and take a look at that number. I had only used I used 125,000 of my 150 to 250. So let's assume now we're somewhere in the range of $300,000 to $400,000, right? We're at about the year mark, somewhere between 3, 9, 12 months. We've got about $350,000 to $450,000. Now I want to go out and I want to find my very next property. But before I start with that, here's what's going to happen. Some of you are going to argue with me and you're going to say, yeah, that works. It sounds great. The math, it's never going to happen. Doesn't work. It's not the case, right? I have on multiple occasions found properties that I have increased the NOI not only by $200 a unit, sometimes by $300 to $400 a unit, if not more, right? It's not something that doesn't work. It's something that we got to get our mind realizing we can make happen. Okay. We got to make our mind realize we can make it happen, and if we're in a situation where the bank says they're not going to finance us, we've got options. We've got seller financing. We have master leases. We have seller carrybacks. We have partnerships. We have JVs. All of those things allow us to move forward, right? So again, we're sitting here somewhere around $400,000. Now here's where it gets fun, right? Here's where it gets fun. Now I'm taking that 400,000 and let's say I go out and I grab my next deal, right? I grab my next deal all by myself. What if I go ahead and do another 10 unit, right? Now I have enough money that I can put down $250,000 on my own. We can do the exact same numbers. I come back, I add 400, subtract 300. I already have about 400. 400 plus 300 is going to take me to $700,000. I've still got a little bit of money sitting there in the account. Again, we are about $700,000, $800,000. We're at the 1 year mark. Guess what we do at that point? We're going to bounce, right? We're going to follow the bounce method, just like we talk about in the book, just like we talk about in our network. Now I'm sitting here, I buy the next property. I start running this, and I continuously run this over and over and over again, right? Now, one last argument, one last debate. Here's the thing that I often hear. Well, I'm worried about cash flow. We still have our wholesaling. We still have our flips. What we don't want to do, and the mistake that I often see happen, is we absolutely do not want to stop using those tools that we already have in place. So continue wholesaling, continue doing those flips, continue doing the meetups, continue building out your queue, continue meeting all of those brokers. Don't stop all the things that are working just because you had one success. And here's the thing, we're talking about a year or two. Imagine what you can do in a decade. Imagine what you can do in 20 years, right? All of those things are very doable, very, very doable. Now, I want to leave you with this. Every time you have a naysayer that tells you that this doesn't work, what I would say to you is go to those meetups, get involved in the network, get to know people that are making these things happen, because it absolutely works. And the naysayers aren't going to push you forward, right? The naysayers aren't going to push you forward. Appreciate y'all. Hope you had a great day, and I shall talk to you later.